Altbays. Altbays.
Altbays. Kia ora, we're live. Altbays Show brought to you by Altbays.nz. If you're watching us right now, it's because you are on YouTube. And if you are on YouTube, you should subscribe to our channel. That's very helpful. There's also a button under the screen where it says join. And if you click on that one, you can put some dollars for the crew. And the crew appreciates that. Thank you very much. Okay? We are in all the audio platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio. So you can check us out after the show if you want to listen to these beautiful conversations. All right. We are also on the social media madness, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, where we upload shorter clips. So if you have an attention span like mine, very limited, you can watch the clips and have a good time. All right. Now we are releasing a new magazine in the Coromando, the media group that Altbays is part of. It's releasing the Coromind magazine. So if you would like to write or if you like to advertise with the magazine, keep in touch. It's a beautiful collaborative work. There's a lot of teachers, students, people from the community writing. So get in touch. It's going to be cool. It's going to be good. I also want to give a beautiful shout out to my brother Stu Pidley, who is releasing his album today. For the locals who know him, go and check Stuart Pidley on the main audio platforms. It's a beautiful EP with 4 tracks recorded by the mighty New Zealand producer Dave Rhodes from all those beautiful bands. He was here a couple of weeks ago. We had the pleasure to have the bro here. So yes, enjoy that. And Stu is here on Wednesday to talk about his new album. I said it fast because I want to chat with these guys here. On my left tonight, I have the pleasure to have Mr. Darrell Bird.
Cheers, mate.
How are you, bro?
Very good, very good.
It's good to see you again.
No, it's exciting to be here, mate.
How was the first experience at Altbays? What, maybe like 3 months ago, I would say?
Yeah, no, it's been good. It's interesting to see what you guys get up to, and it's how that all comes out, you know. So let's watch this space.
Thank you so much. How are things going with Dive Zone, man? Already on that summer madness or building up?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a crazy winter with the weather. We've just had so much shitty weather, so chasing our ass a little bit to catch up. But no, it's got a good vibe this summer, actually.
Cool. So those courses that you guys do, like the diplomas, when do they start?
So we've got a new one starting in February.
Yep.
New program starting in February, and that takes you through till December and onto a career in the dive industry. So it's quite cool seeing our ex-graduates come back and visit, you know, that are working overseas or working in New Zealand, and looking at the next crew coming through that are going to change from students to colleagues, you know, and work in the industry. So it's quite exciting.
That must be a cool thing, eh? To see them coming back, and it's hard not to come back to the Coromando, eh?
Yeah, look, it's really cool. And we've got a group up at the moment from from Cambridge Area School, and they're doing their open water. We've got one of the students on there that's going to come and do our diploma next year, and we've got another student that's going to join us on Wednesday that's actually from that school, that's gone through, done the instructors, and now working in Great Barrier Reef and Cairns. So it's like the whole cycle, you know. She started as a school kid 4 or 5 years ago, and now she's working in the industry. So, you know, there's options out there, so which is quite exciting.
Shout out to Dive Zone Whitianga. Check these guys out. Yeah,
cheers, guys.
Yeah, man. And we're going to have a cool chat with Mr. Ben Brown. How are you, bro?
I'm good, man. Yeah, stoked to be here.
Thanks for coming.
Impressed with the studio.
You like the setup?
I like it, dude.
Nice,
yeah,
man.
I was saying to you guys before we went live that it's got to be the most professional podcast studio in New Zealand, surely.
That deserves something, Taylor. What have we got for Ben?
Shout out to the boys in Whitianga. I love it.
Cool, man. Well, now you know where we are, so let's bring the community here, man, to have a chat.
Yeah,
man.
For sure.
You've been on cool missions this year. What's been happening?
Oh, I've been busy. We, I mean, that's it. The cool thing about what we do with Built to Fish is that it's a year-long project to just create the coolest fishing content we can. So
what is Built to Fish? Let's start from there.
Oh, we'll start there. All right. I mean, I guess if I had to do the sales pitch, I'd say it's I've created a one-stop content creation shop, really. So we do long format video, short format video, still imagery and sort of everything in between, really. So I kind of identified a little bit of a space in the market in New Zealand to bring broadcast quality content to the online space, like all my friends and, my nieces and nephews and everybody else, that they consume all their content by watching Facebook, watching YouTube. It sort of seems like, the TV space is harder to watch, So, that was the mission, to go out and document these awesome adventures and tell some of the stories of the cool missions we're getting up to and share it with a broader audience,
Did you feel like there was a gap to be filled, or it was just like the language that you chose to do it differently?
I mean, initially I felt like there was a gap to be filled. It pretty quickly got filled. Like, it wasn't like I came up with this crazy idea that no one had thought of. I just, at the time when everyone was turning towards the internet to watch their TV content, I was like, you know what? I was kind of transitioning out of a sporting career and was doing a lot of videography and storytelling, and fishing was my passion, and I just saw a space for it to happen. And then, I don't know, it's like when you start anything, you have these grand visions of what it's going to be, and it sort of has to develop.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? It has to, you have to figure out what you want to make of it. And I guess we're still evolving as to what exactly it is we want to be, but I guess that we've stuck, well, I keep saying I've stuck pretty true to my core values, which is to be authentic as I can, do the stuff that I like to do and be the person that I am, rather than trying to create some artificial persona, So, we'll go out fishing and we'll have a couple of beers and I'll drop a few F-bombs and, I'll show all the things I stuff up, and, it's pretty raw and fun and authentic and
very well shot, by the way.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's that's the other mission that we had, was to make beautiful pictures, and tell engaging stories, because that was kind of with my kayaking career. Well, I mean, I'm probably jumping ahead of the gun, but it was always about not always telling the story of the action, but also the background story and
how you got there and stuff.
Yeah, exactly, and the relationships you create and the places you go, and all that stuff's interesting, and the more you do something, I guess you get a little bit blasé about it, and then you realise when you come back and show someone some footage, they're like, holy shit, that's epic, and you're like, oh fuck, I see that every day.
Yeah,
but so no, it's cool. I mean, I love the creative side of it, I guess it's my art and just the whole process of creating a piece of video or telling a story. It's something that's very satisfying. I start with nothing, take some cameras out, film something, tell a story, put not really my spin, but there's always your sort of angle on it, and then you sit back and you're like, we started with nothing, and now we've got that. That makes me feel quite proud of what we've done, So,
oh man, congratulations,
yeah,
bro! And just before we carry on, I just want to give a shout out to our friends from Peninsula Motel for being our sponsor of the show tonight. So, busy season. If you are coming to the Coromandel, check them out, Peninsula Motel. We're not going to say where Ben is going to stay tonight, so people don't go there chasing him, giving autographs and all this.
Yeah, I'll make sure my door's locked.
Yeah, lock the door, man. Make sure to support our friends Peninsula Motel. We're going to have the logo on the TV, peninsulamotel.co.nz. Am I right, Taylor? Thank you so much. Fred's amazing guy, runs the business onto it. So, yeah, thank you so much. Man, what I was thinking while you were telling the story about, putting ourselves out there and if you make a mistake, it's a mistake and it's all good and it's authentic. And then I was also thinking that Darrell, when there are advertisements or things to go on the radio, that's him, that's his voice, he's the face of the business. So I want to put that on the table for you guys. Sports people in the future, in the past, there was not this thing with being out there online, you were a sports person, man, you were doing the thing. And nowadays you kind of have to be out there. How is that for you guys? You have a job, you're doing that, but you still have to be the face of the company. Is it something that comes naturally, or sometimes you have to make an effort? No, we got to do this.
Oh, I think it's all part of your cred, you know, so it makes the whole thing work. You know, if you're authentic and you're doing it and you're putting yourself on the line for it, that sort of gives you a bit of background, and people will, it's something to defend too. Like I'll back what we do and any of my staff do, and hey, the decisions we make are decisions we've made. You know, that's how it is, and then people can see that what we're doing is real. You know, and they want to be part of it.
Yes. Is that how you feel, bro? Putting yourself out there, like being the face of it, like you couldn't be happier with being the face of Built to Fish.
Well, I mean, it Built to Fish is me, you know. So, and that's the thing is, I like what you see is what you get, you know, and that's to my benefit and to my detriment at times. It's like, you know, I always believe in wearing your heart on your sleeve and being true to yourself. So, yeah, I'm comfortable. And I mean, I love it when people come up to me and say, hey, I love your videos, it's cool. Or, you know, we do a live stream where I answer a lot of questions, and I always try to make an effort to respond to messages and comments, with positive or negative. And, you know, if someone's taken the time to reach out to me, I'm more than happy to take a little bit of time out of my day to give them back what they gave me, you know. So, yeah.
What do you guys have at the moment? Like, is it one boat and then you go for it, or like you collaborate with other businesses? How is the infrastructure of the channel?
I got a couple of boats. So I've got a little boat that I do a lot of my vlogging stuff where I'm just filming myself with my GoPros. And then I work with my brother who films some of our sort of, it's very obvious if you watch our content on YouTube, there'll be my sort of video diaries where a lot of it's me talking down the barrel of the camera, very obviously either by myself or self-filming, and then our more polished stuff is with my brother. So, yeah, and that's the beauty of being online, you know. We can make a 5-minute episode or an hour and 5-minute episode, and we can just let things breathe or make them exciting, and that's, you know, I love the freedom that being online as opposed to TV gives us, you know. So.
And technology is helping with that, right? It's way easier to carry less things nowadays to have good quality content, eh?
Well, the good thing too is now that it's on there, you can always go back and watch it again, you know, or share it with someone else so they can see the experience you had or watched, and hopefully get tips out of it too, you know, that they can use themselves and gain their own skills from it too, you know. So that's quite cool to get that feedback from people as well.
When you had that deal with, if you don't mind telling that story again, because I'm sure a lot of people don't know about that, but when you had GoPro approaching you to actually, was it like to buy a video that you made with GoPro?
Yeah.
Was that the story?
Yeah.
So tell me that story, but what were you doing before? Were you actually out there filming before GoPros and all that stuff?
Yeah. So like, as a little bit of a kind of background, I was a professional whitewater kayaker, and I was actually New Zealand's first ever Red Bull athlete. So at the time when I became, I guess, a professional athlete, it was all, you know, that social media hadn't been invented. The internet was, you know, had been around for a while, but it wasn't, you know, I remember when I first started doing my international trips, I had like some weird email address that I'd check every month, you know. And it was all, you know, due to the nature of being an exploration kayaker, we were going to places where we couldn't take camera crews. And in order to create a career, I had to find a way to capture what we were doing and bring it back to a wider audience. So, yeah, I mean, initially we were creating helmets where we could create neck braces and head braces and have giant digital video, you know, not even digital, actual tape cameras inside a waterproof housing. And then we got really fancy, you know, Sony bought out a pencil cam that cost some ungodly amount that you'd run with a cable in under your spray deck into a Pelican case with a camera recording under there. And GoPro actually, via Adventure Magazine in New Zealand, sent me one of their original Hero cameras, which ran on little AAA batteries, shot this tiny low resolution image. And I thought the world was going to be forever changed, and they were actually hopeless. In cold water, they'd shut off. And then I got sent one of their original HD Hero 1s, which was a total game changer. Rechargeable lithium battery in it. It was shooting 720 footage, had the ability to shoot high frame rate so we could get slow motion, and I was filming like a madman. And the initial approach was made from GoPro. We'd had a big rain event in the North Island. I went up to a river we occasionally paddled in the Kaimai Ranges, and there's a couple of significant waterfalls on it. One's about 30 feet and one's about 70 feet. And I got some great footage, made a nice edit, and I had a great shot from the stern of my kayak on a mount I'd made where I sort of came over the horizon line, and you got this great visual of like my friends sitting in the pool below, and I went off the edge, and then I landed, and then I spliced in the footage of me landing off the smaller waterfall, and I was in the spray, and I did this little like, just because like, oh, that was perfect line. And then I at the time I used to use music off a website called thissongisick.com, which was basically aspiring DJs that would remix popular songs, and you could get around YouTube's copyright laws if you use that music. And I found a dubstep track, this was 2009 or something, like GoPro was still kind of in its infancy. And at that moment where I dropped, a big dubstep beat drop, put it on YouTube, went crazy. GoPro hit me up and they're like, hey, we'd love to buy that footage, And I was like, sure, what do you want to pay? And I forget. It was $5,000 or something. But at the time, as a dirtbag kayaker, I was like, hell yeah, now we're talking. And I was like, hey, I'd love to. So I should actually point out at this point, I think there was 6 employees for GoPro. And the 6 employees were the 6 original. It was Nick Woodman, who started the company, and his roommates from university that all were shareholders of the company. And I was like, hey, I'd love to be sponsored by you guys. And they're like, we'll see how this goes. I was like, cool, whatever. And they're like, hey, by the way, who was that DJ that was on the soundtrack? And I was like, oh, it was some dude, like, calls himself Skrillex or something. He's some, like, up-and-coming DJ, like, had no followers, had no nothing. And then some time went by. They bought the footage. And then I was in the States doing a kayaking tour. I used to go away to North America and Scandinavia for like 10 months a year kayaking. And it was sort of it was the end of the Californian season, so late July. I'm like cruising around, doing my thing, and my cell phone just started blowing up one day. And I was like, what the hell? Heaps of messages and stuff. And they're like, hey, dude, every ad break in the X Games, there's this footage of you, like a 30-second video of you going off this waterfall, and it's the GoPro ad. And I was like, holy shit, that's pretty cool. Shortly thereafter, GoPro were like, hey, yep, we'll sign you up to a deal. That'll be all good. So happy days. And then I came back to New Zealand, had a New Zealand summer, and then I remember it was late January on a Monday. I'm like, same thing, cruising around, doing my thing on a Monday morning. And I was in a meeting, I think I had a meeting with one of my sponsors, and I could feel my phone in my pocket, and it was just going, and I was like, fuck. And it's a bit melodramatic, but I was like, shit, somebody's drowned, because that was like normally when, like, at a weird time when the phone went crazy, it was because there'd been an accident, Got out of the meeting, I'm like, first message I look at it, they're like, dude, you're on the Super Bowl halftime commercial. Whoa. And it was GoPro's first ever Super Bowl commercial, and they didn't even tell me I was going to be on it. And I went to an athlete summit a couple months later, and they reckon it had 498 million viewers in the 18 plus age bracket, and it was still Skrillex. And I mean, he was on the rise, but I think it was a good little kick.
You gave him a hand.
I swung him in, and I'd say he got paid a little bit more than I did. But I mean, that's so. And after that, I mean, they have such an amazing culture in that company, and they really. I've been through the whole wave, from the start through the financial crisis. When they blew up, became $1 billion company, they got every big-time athlete you could imagine. And then all those big-time athletes have gone, apart from the odd ones that love the product, love using the camera. And I think that's what's given me so much longevity with them, is that I use my GoPro every day. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just become a part of me, and it's, so that's kind of my GoPro journey.
When you become an athlete or someone who's getting sponsored, like you carry their name, like, is it like a money deal and also services, or like they take you to places? Like what are the perks? Because I think a lot of people think that you only get like products, or you only get a little money. Like, do they project you? How is it to be sponsored by like a big company?
I mean, those big ones like GoPro, there's a good financial portion of your contract. The beauty of GoPro as a company is, money makes the world go round, right? I was traveling, I've been to 70 something countries kayaking. I was away 9-10 months of the year, that, you know, I was lucky to have Red Bull as a sponsor and GoPro as a sponsor, and having those out of industry ones gave me the freedom to be able to travel. But what they both did was they also tried to develop you as a person and as a content creator. So, you know, GoPro would have an athlete summit every year. We'd go to a cool, you know, we went to Sonora Valley, and, you know, it was a 4-day conference. They taught us how to race cars. You know, it was at a, like, we're driving R8s. Yeah. So it was you know, but then in the afternoon, they'd break you up into groups, and they'd, based on your skill level with the cameras, and teach you the new technology. We'd have like very secret meetings about the new cameras coming out and give our input into that. They'd give you social media training, so on and so forth, you know, and it was just, and then the beauty of it is, you know, the following year we went to the North Shore of Hawaii. We stayed at Turtle Bay Resort for 4 days. They'd take us out shark diving, surfing, sailing, whatever. But all the time we're filming ourselves. And then we'd go back and they'd show us the new techniques, how to edit the footage we'd captured. They'd have some fun in-house competition amongst the athletes, and the prize would be something outrageous. Like, you know, the best photo gets a new MacBook Pro, a 24-month subscription to the Adobe Creative Suite.
That helps.
You know what I mean? And it was, you know, it was cool. I mean, it was 90 athletes or 100 athletes. But the other cool thing is you're also, they'd always tell us, you know, right, in this athlete group right now, you have 198 million fans.
Wow.
Based off your social media. And everyone's just, that what they did is created, like, there was no competition amongst the athlete group, which sound, you know, it's easy to sit here and say, yeah, of course there wasn't. But the reality of being a professional athlete, particularly in the smaller countries, is you're all competing for a piece of the same pie. You know what I mean? Whereas, you know, being part of that group, it was like a rising tide lifts all ships, you know. So if everybody succeeded, we all succeeded. And it was just, it made the experience so good because, you know, you'd come out of that and your followers had gone up and your engagement had gone up, and you'd learned all these new skills. You'd become friends with famous people that you've only seen on TV. And it was just, the whole experience was great. You learned a whole lot of new skills, and plus you had this like bigger affinity with the company that you're working for, you know. You're like, and which, you know, for me was quite important during those downturns, you know, because you've got to, when it's good, and then they come back to you and they're like, hey dude, like shit's getting a little tight here, you know, we went public and we went big and now stocks are dropping. This is how we're going to have to restructure your contract. And a lot of those big time guys were like, nah dude, I'll go to the next big thing. And all of us sort of core crew that were like, nah man, whatever, it's not about the money, it's about, you know, being part of the family. You just like, you go along and
do you guys think, like, not all Kiwis, obviously, because we have a good example of a Kiwi who knew how to take an opportunity and be out there in the world, but Darrell, like, do you think Kiwis sometimes take for granted the beauty of being from New Zealand, because it's a small country, but like it's nice to be a big fish in a small pond, and like it can project you, and then you get more visibility because like there are maybe less people competing in the country?
Well, it's different in the different fields, but I think the opportunities you get if you do put it across there and get out there. You must have done some collaboration with some of those athletes afterwards, or did you do much of that sort of stuff?
I mean, it was hard because we were doing such wildly different things. And right. I mean, it was one of the positives and the negatives of the type of kayaking we were doing, which was to go off and try and find unrun rivers, was where you could go was pretty limited, you know, and you're not going to get, you know, Sean White, the snowboarder, to come to northern Uganda, or you know what I mean? So there wasn't a lot of collaboration, but I mean, I guess to answer your question, you probably answered two things. I mean, you asked two things. I would never have regarded myself as a big fish in a small pond. I mean, there's All Blacks and, you know, famous guys. What I would say about taken for granted about being from New Zealand, I would agree with that for sure. And I think it's only when you travel around the world that you suddenly realise how good New Zealand is. I mean, you guys would understand, coming from a different country, you know, that it shares a pretty special piece of paradise. Yeah.
We're happy to stick around.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, like, the more places I go, the more I'm like, you know, when I was a young fella, all I wanted to do was leave. And now all I want to do is be here, you know, and it's like, that's just, I mean, that's not a negative thing. It's just the nature of living.
What do they
somewhere.
say? You should travel your own country before you go overseas. Or
Yeah.
something? So many Kiwis don't even know what else is out there, you know. So
Totally.
take advantage of where they're at, you know.
Yeah.
Of these 70 and so countries, can you give us some wild ones, some great like stories or some places that you were like very oh man, pick
Yes.
a couple to start with and then we go from there, because Darrell got some good stories as well about being overseas, so we might find some similarities there.
mean, people always ask me, what's your favorite country? Yeah, you can't answer that. Every country has.
It's not fair.
Yeah. It's like, you know, if I had to tell you where my favorite place to kayak was, it's the most boring answer ever. It's California, because the gas was cheap, it was easy, it was first world, and the kayaking was epic. It was granite. It was always sunny in spring. It was always bluebird, warm. You could set your watch on what the river flows were going to do because it was snow melt. But, you know, out of all the places I've been to, it's about the most vanilla, you know. But, I mean, the crazy stories.
What about the toughest one? Because that was too easy to kayak.
Yeah.
What about the hardest one?
Well, the toughest expedition I ever did was... So just to give you a little bit of a backstory, at the point where my kayaking career was at its finest, maybe not the finest, where I was, you know, everything was good. I had awesome sponsors. I was getting paid a good amount of money. I was traveling all year round. Wasn't a concern. I had a sponsored vehicle in the States. Opportunities were coming at me left, right, and center. And I just sort of nestled in my comfort zone. You know, I was like, hell yeah, I've got this shit all figured out. Discovery Channel came to me. Well, a production company working for Discovery Channel came to me and said, hey, we're filming this new TV series called, I think it was called Focus, something like that, some name. And it was basically it was a company called Matchstick Productions that specialised in mountain bike films and ski films. So this series was 13 episodes. They'd do 5 mountain bike episodes, 5 ski episodes, and then there was 3 other ones. And they did some base, you know, wingsuit flying, base jumping ones, and they wanted to do a kayaking one. So off we went to northern Thailand. We flew into Bangkok, hopped in a van, drove right up past Chiang Mai, up close to the border with Laos, and we got taken to this waterfall. We all looked at it, looked a little bit sketchy, but hey, we'll give it a shot. It'll be fine. It'll be a great video. So my first 5 seconds sitting in the kayak, I came off this 30-foot drop. I was worried about hitting the bottom, so I leant back a little bit, landed on rocks, broke my back. Yeah, and everything came screeching to a halt. So all of a sudden, eventually, once I got out of Chiang Mai Hospital, I spent a week there. They carried me out of the river, strapped to a door, got me to the hospital. Long story. Ended up back in New Zealand. Didn't need surgery, but had to be in a body brace for a while. Healed up. Did all the rehab process was classic. I was doing like aqua jogging at the local swimming pool with like morbidly obese people. It was gnarly. But anyway, my first opportunity off the back of that was to join up with the same film crew, go to northern Uganda and kayak a piece of the White Nile River, which is one of the tributaries. There's the Blue Nile and the White Nile, which are the tributaries to the Nile River itself. Do a 100-kilometre, 5 or 6 day trip. Within that river, it was the highest concentration. Well, within that 100k stretch, it was the highest concentration of Nile crocodiles in the world, highest concentration of hippos in the world. The whole northern bank was Lord's Resistance Army. So Joseph Kony, I don't know if listeners know who Joseph Kony is, but think Blood Diamond. It's that rebel group that Blood Diamond was based on. And there'd been 9 attempts before us. There'd been 2 successful descents. There'd been several deaths by the other people trying to attempt it, and nobody had made it to the bottom apart from 2 groups. And that was pretty much the first thing I was doing after a big rehab from a broken back. And it was weird. I mean, I could tell the story for a long time, but some of the highlights are, it was quite a big process to get a permit to go, because part of, on the Ugandan side, it was all national park, and to let foreigners into the national park for something that they perceived as, well, they didn't really need to perceive it as dangerous. It was very dangerous. They weren't that keen on it. So we went into the wildlife office in Kampala in Uganda, and we spoke to this guy that ran the national park, and he's like, well, if you guys sign all these waivers, pay us a $500 fee, we'll give you a permit to go in. And then they called some other guy, and he's like, okay, I want to talk to you guys about what happens if you have animal encounters. We're like, righto. And they're like, okay, if someone gets attacked by a hippo, let the attack finish. Once the hippos have gone, then go in and retrieve whatever's left. If someone gets attacked by a crocodile, all rush in, make a lot of noise, whatever, try and scare them off because they'll let go. And if you're the person getting attacked by the crocodile, if your arm's in its mouth, stick your arm down its throat, and there's a flap at the back of their throat that they seal off when they're underwater to stop water going into their chest cavity, and that, try and push that and they'll let you go. And this guy's telling the story deadpan, and I'm like, what the fuck are we getting ourselves into here? Like, anyway, off we go. And we set up a campsite at the top of the river, and we did a day kayak down. There's a big waterfall that we had to go around. We did a day kayak down to our campsite, and it was so gnarly, like hippos and crocodiles and all sorts. And we slept in our camp. We sat in the on the beach below the waterfall, about to set off, and it was everything that I'd imagined. I'd spent a lot of time in Africa leading up to that point, mainly in Zambia, which is very dry and dead and deserty, but this was like right on the equator. And as I sat there, I was like, man, this is exactly what I like pictured Africa as. You know, I was expecting to see like Tarzan, but it was, I mean, once you started to make your way down the river, there's no way you're coming back. Like, it's thick jungle. I mean, on one side of the river's got a child soldiers and all sorts of shit. And we'd been told all this stuff, you know, oh, the hippos are only in the flat stretches, the crocodiles won't chase you into the rapids. We peel out, go through this ginormous rapid, and halfway down it, there's a hippo standing in the middle of this like grade 4 rapid with a bow wave coming off his chest. And I was like, oh, yep, there's going to be no hippos in the rapids, right? But off we went. I mean, it took us 5 days, and it was such a wild mix of fear, excitement, camaraderie, complete focus. Like, I remember, you know, you'd get into camp at night, raining, these little shitty tents we'd bought in like a supermarket in Kampala because they were small. You'd lie in the tent, sleep, you know, just because you're exhausted from being so focused. You'd wake up in the morning, there'd be hippo prints all around your little tent. But
no attacks. No.
I mean, we had 7 contact croc encounters where we had to hit with paddles or throw helmets or whatever. Had one very serious hippo encounter on land. The river would braid up into different channels, and we'd have to scout the rapids by breaking up into separate groups, taking VHF radios, and the only way you could make your way across the islands was through tunnels that hippos had made, and it was thick, thorny stuff. And me and another mate of mine from South Africa, we chose one island, and we were going to try and find a vantage point to look at the rapid, and we're sort of bent over going through the tunnel and came up behind a hippo in its calf, and she tried to back out, and it barked and turned around, and we both just ran trying to figure out different ways, and we both ended up in different areas tangled in big like vines with thorns on them, all with our clothes torn to shreds, and the hippo just ran straight past us, luckily. But
are there instructions like that for sharks or some other beasts in the water, Darrell? Any put their hands in the mouth? Is there anything that you should add to that? Let's make a list.
No, I'm taking this on board, man. This would be. I'd love to do a dive with crocs too. You see, at some stage that'd be quite cool. They do it in Africa, South Africa. They do some dives there.
Oh, really?
Well, but it just looks so creaky, right? They're prehistoric beasts, right? So it must be quite awesome to actually, you know, see that and then see what.
Yeah, I mean, it was
navigate through it.
Did you have opportunities, like was diving a thing for you, like when you were?
I've been diving since I was a little kid, but there was no way I was going to dive in that river. I mean, you couldn't. For one, the visibility was about 50 mil. But I actually met a base jumping skydiving girl from Italy at one of quite a few of the GoPro summits, Roberto Mancina, and she did a whole lot of free diving with the saltwater crocs, dressed in a ball gown. Her whole thing is, well, not her whole thing. She's a pretty lady, and she does a lot of base jumping in like lingerie and, you know, But yeah, she did this in Australia, this like free diving with saltwater crocs, face to face with these things, no mask, no nothing, just like in a beautiful ball gown, just mad woman.
And that's where that footage comes in, and you can share that with so many people now. And it might be just an armchair warrior that's quite excited now that he's seen that stuff, and that's his buzz, right? Just seeing other people have those experiences could be a lot for a lot of people.
Have you guys seen the shark one, the one in Fitzhanga not that long ago, that the shark jumped on the
from down the coast?
Yeah.
That was wild, eh?
A friend of mine was I've been trying to get him to come out to Whitianga. He's telling me where's Whitianga, he's in Canada, and he had no idea where Whitianga was. I'm trying to get him to come visit, and next minute he sends me this post of the world news of this shark on a bow of a boat in Whitianga. So like it was all quite timely, how that sort of, and Church said that video was just shared just crazily, that's one of those random ones that just gets shared by everybody.
Yeah.
Can't plan a viral, Ben. You never know when it's going to be.
You can't, no.
Man, when you were just telling us like the distance, like how far you are, like how high you are when you on your kayak, like how is the impact on your body, bro? Because you like, is it something that is still like, do you carry anything from like, because I imagine a lot of impacts
I mean, I've got, my biggest thing that I carry is my shoulder. I blew that apart later on in my career in Norway. Went off a little waterfall and had a rock go into my armpit and blow it all to pieces. But I mean, it's going off a waterfall is like trying to describe what a car crash is like. Some of them are minor, some of them you had little nose to tail, you don't notice, and some of them are boom, you know what I mean? So it depends on the waterfall. There is a lot of impacts. Off the high ones, we'd always try and land not vertical, but sort of 45 to 90 degrees to get, you don't want to end up getting recirculated in the bottom. And some of the like higher volume, lower waterfalls would actually try and stay pretty flat and get away from the waterfall. And we called it a boof because that was kind of the sound that the kayak made when it hit the water at the bottom of the waterfall. And I mean, those are the ones like, we did it when I was young and stupid. We did hooker falls like 14 times in a day or something, and we're doing them in freestyle kayaks which have a flat hull, and one of the guys got delayed concussion just from all day, like kabang, kabang. And I mean, my back's okay. It would probably be better if I took better care of it. My wife's always trying to get me to join in her Pilates classes and stuff, but I mean, it's fine. It's kind of like a little memento, you know what I mean? It's
Do you do much kayaking yet?
No, hardly any at all. Very little. It's weird. I like the whole end of my career. It was something. I was doing a talk to some school leavers not long ago, and they were leaving intermediate school, and they a lot of the time I do these public speaking engagements, and depending on who it's for, with these kids it was about finding something that lights the fire inside you, and for having a passion. And it doesn't have to be something crazy. It can be playing the guitar or painting or whatever, but just having something that gets you out of bed in the morning, And I've done these talks to the warriors and to corporate bigwigs, and they've always got what's the highest waterfall? Did you ever think you're going to die? Da, da, da. And these 12-year-old kids had these really insightful questions, and this little girl put her hand. 12-year-old girl put her hand up, and she was like, what was the hardest thing for you, starting your career or finishing your career? And I was like, holy shit, that's the most intelligent question I've ever been asked. And my answer was, it was finishing my career, because I didn't know I was starting it. You know what I mean? It's not like you sign a contract to become a professional rugby player. It's like you're doing something you love, and through a little bit of good management and hard work and luck, you get noticed by someone, and you create this, for me it was like there wasn't a career path. I had to sort of make it up as I went along. But to finish it, it was to to give that Red Bull helmet back, to know that all these incredible friendships I'd made around the world, I wasn't going to see these guys every spring like I'd always done. I wasn't going to go on these adventures. So it was something that I'd always dreaded a lot. And there was a couple of times, when I blew my shoulder apart, I've rehabbed from that, but I still loved the sport. And then a couple of things happened. I got married. I had a couple of close friends drown. That had been something that was a constant throughout my career, but I had a couple of young friends drown, and and the fire just kind of went out,
Right.
you know, which was I never thought would happen. But I was at a couple of memorials watching what was left behind, which I had never really appreciated. Even when I'd been to other friends' funerals or whatever and seen the damage, we were just like so focused on what we were doing, and we accepted the risks, we knew the risks, but I guess I'd never really. I guess that comes with the maturity and age or something. Like I'd never really stepped back and gone, "Ooh, this actually creates quite a mess in the background," and it's hard for mums and dads and brothers and sisters to understand the motivation to do something that can ultimately make you dead. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to explain to someone that doesn't do it. Like, and when you're young and fit and excited, the juice is worth the squeeze. And I guess I just got to the point where I was like, I'm not prepared to take this risk anymore. You know what I mean? Like I've got too much living to do. And I guess my tunnel vision kind of spread wider, and I was like, yeah, I'll walk away. And then, I mean, yeah, life's busy. I'm fishing and filming, and I've still got all my kayaks, and I have intentions to go and rip down a few rivers, and I'm sure I will. But yeah, no, I don't do much anymore. That was a long way to get to nah, but
but it's amazing though. You don't know that at the time, right? The point of exit or whatever.
Is diving something that can be a bit more sustainable because there are not much impact? They're all like for the lungs, or there are conditions that can affect divers?
Oh, absolutely. So it's a time thing as well. We've got guys in their 80s that are still diving, you know, but they'll manage their dives and on the nice day, perfect conditions. You get the young fellas that are bulletproof and want to go deeper. Everything's about the depth and stuff like that. So my appreciation now is seeing the smile in these kids that are learning and doing that aspect. So, you know, probably more diving, but at a lesser level sort of thing. So there is definitely chances of, you know, guys take more risk, I suppose, when they're younger or maybe don't know enough about it as well.
And what about, because you mentioned the youth going there, talking to young people, and what's the vibe for you when you're looking at like the scene of what's happening now? Like, is it something that excites you, like, or you just look at it like, oh yeah, cool, I've been there, I've done my thing, or like you feel like there's always a new vibe, there's something new to be added to it?
I'm excited by it, man. What? Yeah, you're talking about the kayaking scene?
Yeah, about like the extreme sport, because it is an extreme sport, right?
Mate, I mean, it's the progression of what's happened in the world of kayaking is just mind-blowing. And you know, we used to travel around the world, and it was like, we'll go run some hard rivers, take some cool photos, make a cool video, and then we'll go party our asses off, and then we'll do it all over again. Yeah. These kids these days, they like go and run these hard rivers, harder than we used to ever do, perfectly. That they are fit, strong. They like watch their nutrition. They do yoga. That, you know what I mean. They've become. I mean, we called ourselves athletes because there wasn't a better word for it. We weren't athletes, but these kids these days are athletes. You know, they're thinking about their performance, and yeah, I mean, it's watching the level it's been taken to it's incredible, and you know, it's kind of cool. Like, I used to go and do all the commentary at the Extreme Kayaking World Championships in Austria every year, and these young kids that come up and be like, "Holy shit, dude! We used to watch your videos back in the day, back when they were actual videos." You know, guys would go and buy VHS tapes and then DVDs. I mean, it's weird now that DVDs are even like outdated, eh? And then there, you know, these little groms that was saying that we inspired them are now just taking that level to something else. It's
maybe a bit harder now, you know, when you guys did it back in the day with not so much access to information about the rivers and information about access and techniques, or is something come out with is there better kayaks now, or is there better resources as far as
I don't know. The kayak design, I think when I was a professional kayaker, we were at the cutting edge of it. Like the progression of designs and techniques and skills, it was incredible. There used to be an outdoor retailer show in Salt Lake City every year where there was an enormous buzz around what the next design was going to be, but it's massively plateaued. Like, I could go and grab my kayak out of my shed now that I used to paddle in 2015 and it would be as good as anything that the guys are using now, you know. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's just maybe you see it more. I honestly think guys have just been inspired by other athletes, like in different genres, and seen the benefits of training and nutrition and injury prevention, and they've thought more about, I guess, they film themselves and they can refine their techniques, but there hasn't been any like quantum leap in kayak design or instructional resources or anything like that. That's it's just, there's just some talented dudes, and I guess like I say, I mean, that if you cracked it back in the day when you got on a video from one of about 3 video producers, and now you crack it when you have 1 million YouTube subscribers and you're putting in 10 or 20 grand a month on YouTube. So the market's been saturated, but it's also, there's a lot more like accessible information and that from that
A lot more people can
perspective.
see what you're up to.
Exactly. So yeah.
Do you take Built to Fish to other countries?
In terms of our filming, we've done a little bit of stuff on the Great Barrier Reef, North Carolina, done a few trips to the Big Island of Hawaii. So it's it's sort of dabbling a little bit. It's cool, but I mean, certainly our hearts are in New Zealand. It's just such a, like you said, it's such a magical playground here, and it's I love that we have viewers tuning in from all around the world, but I get really stoked on the Kiwis tuning in, because it's a tough market, man. Like, New Zealand is a picky bunch when it comes to who they want to support, what they want to watch. They've got some, other fantastic fishing content creators that they can get into. So, when we get good feedback from our local audience, it means a lot. Is
it the target audience for you in New Zealand, or you just try to be as broad as you can, and you obviously validate and appreciate when New Zealanders? Yeah, I mean,
I guess I haven't really got a target audience. My target audience is people who accept what I do for what I do. You know what I mean? Like, as we said before the mics went on, it's you got to have a thick skin to operate in the online space. There's a lot of tough guys that sit behind a keyboard, and I've got pretty good at tuning that stuff out. We don't get much of it, but anyone that has some sort of connection or is inspired or motivated or learns something or any and all of the above of any of that stuff, if they reach out and they say it's because of what you've created that I've done this, that's a measure of success for me. Like that's the peak of, that's what I'm going for, and it's happening more and more, and it's bloody good. I mean, I was walking around the field days on Saturday and had people coming up all day like, dude, I love your videos, I've learned so much, whatever. I'm like, fuck yeah, this is exactly what we're trying to achieve with this, Yeah.
Are there places in New Zealand that you go nowadays that are different from where you used to go? Like, that you realize that the conditions are different, or I don't know, like the things have changed and you cannot do what you used to do, or now it's easier, now there's more access? Like, how is looking back and going back to places and seeing the differences? Because now you do it more professionally, let's say. You have a different goal than when you were going fishing before.
The goal hasn't changed. The goal is still to go out and enjoy New Zealand's marine environment.
You're just getting more out of it.
Yeah,
right?
I guess so. And I mean, it'll probably be controversial for me to say, and it won't fit the narrative of a lot of people, but I have noticed a change. A lot of places have got better. The Hauraki Gulf, for example, I think the fishery is improving. I guess I'm improving as a fisherman too. The techniques are improving, the gear's improving. So the fishery itself may not be getting better. But yeah, I mean, I think some places have got worse. I guess, the Bay of Plenty is a pretty good example. The fishing has definitely died off there. I mean, we could open up a Pandora's box of how it's been managed and commercial fishing, and it's a tricky road to navigate that, because I would never want to stop anyone making a living. It's a tough world. People got to make money. Commercial fishermen have their place. I think there's ways to do it which are sustainable and are better for the marine environment. And what is noticeable as you go, you notice it to an extent in New Zealand, but when you go to other places, you can see the result of what happens if you don't look after a marine environment. We're in a lucky point, I think, of human and the world's evolution, where a lot of the places we like to go aren't past the point of no return. I mean, the Great Barrier Reef's a perfect example, right? Like how 5, 6, 7 years ago it was all, it's dead, the whole thing's screwed, it's the biggest living organism on Earth and it's going to die. And now it's all coming back, and apparently it couldn't come back. So it's not all doom and gloom, but it's definitely, I've kind of gone off on a bit of a tangent here, but it's a fragile place, and I try and be, I don't try and be, naturally I'm respectful of the place that we go, and it's a weird paradox, I guess, to care for a marine environment so much, yet you're motivated by going and capturing an animal out of it. And that's something that we have to.
But it's something like we talked about last time I was on here. But 10 years ago, you'd be a bit of a crackpot, talking about the environment sort of stuff. Now it's so mainstream. Everyone's got more of a vision of it and understanding, and only taking the limits. We've noticed that with the divers, with crayfish, and doing everything else. There's more photos being taken now than than the guys that were the hunters and pillagers. So there is a lot more awareness, and that's coming from stuff that you do as well. Showing that out and making people aware of it, I reckon.
Because you don't want to ruin the place that is giving you what you need, right?
Totally. And it's like, I don't think the old schoolers before us, I mean, my dad's generation, it wasn't that they didn't care about the environment, they didn't know any better.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It was what had always been done, and it was fine. Now there's commercial pressure, there's a lot more recreational pressure, boats are better, electronics are better, fishing gear's better, and it's just and we've got a better idea of what's going on. And now it's like, this is a magnificent resource. By all means, take stuff to eat, share it with your friends and family, but just know that it's a finite resource. And once it's gone, it's hard to get back. You know what I mean? And the problem is we're dealing with an environment that obviously, as people that use, or like a resource that as people that use it, we care a lot about it. But there's other people that have an opinion that don't necessarily use the resource so much, that also have an opinion about how it can be managed. So it's up to the fishermen, the divers, the commercial interests to self-regulate a little bit, or else bigger forces will come into play, and then we're going to get ourselves in a bit of a pickle, So, I mean, it's. I definitely try and share my thoughts about how much you should take, and I'll never judge anyone. There's legal limits about what you can take, but just because something's legal doesn't necessarily make it right. So it's. I hope that we're educating our audience, but it's like, everyone's in different boats and different. Some people need more fish than others. And, you know what I mean? It's like, when if you're taking the piss, like maybe, if you're going and getting a feed of scallops and you got 10 people on the boat, you know how many you're allowed, but do you need that many? You know what I mean? It's like, it's a big balance.
Do you guys think that it's that moment that sometimes people slip, that people miss, because you're having fun, because you have the drinks, and then you're kind of like, you take a little bit more than you should? Do you think it's that moment, or it's just more like lack of information, maybe like lack of, as you said, as the people who are making a living out of it, to have more like obvious, like to have more things clear to the people who are going out there in the sea, so those things don't happen? Because like I feel like for all of us as humans is that thing with like, I'll just do it now, like I'll just take a little bit more, like it won't make a big difference, and then everybody kind of like thinks the same, and then suddenly it's like, oh shit, now there's a big chunk missing.
Awareness is a big thing, I think, and that's something we're all educating each other on now. Like we had these kids out today smashing a few kenner open, feeding the fish, and they were fizzing, man, absolutely fizzing. So they're going to be new advocates for the ocean too, right? So if they learn to look after it, and so my daughters and her kids are going to have something to look at, and still be able to chuck a line in the water and grab some fish, right? So it doesn't something to be that's in the museum, So it's just that that balance, eh?
I mean, people are different too. Like, I mean, you could take those two things. Like, some people go, oh, it won't matter. Some people couldn't care less, you know? And I guess I mean, that's life, right? People are different. I just hope that, I don't know. I think Kiwis are pretty good at it, is that we've got to take ownership for this is our home. It's the only one we got. And treat it like that, you know what I mean?
Are there areas of New Zealand that you see that are more attention going to those matters, or like it's pretty much a national thing, one fits all, like people are trying to do the same for everybody? Or are there places that you feel more comfortable going and doing your thing, like you see better regulations, or you just see people, you don't have to drop names or anything, but like that you enjoy going more, you see like more effort going into
No. We're pretty good here. Like, I think most of the people that use the, you know, fish and dive on a regular basis, I mean, you'll agree with me, I'm sure they know, you know what I mean? And I guess it's whether it be people that don't use the ocean very much, or maybe people that are from a different mindset or a different culture where you don't get the same opportunities to harvest seafood, you know, it's an education thing, it's a self-regulating thing, like, I mean, New Zealand's a great place. People are cool. Like, there's bad apples in every batch, but we're pretty good. It's, you know,
it's when you travel overseas and you see other countries, right, and you see what's happened, you know, a lot of the Pacific Islands where they've taken the now dollar, and not thought about the future dollar, you know. So
exactly,
a lot of these areas have been, you know, pillaged a bit. The locals have made some cash, but then they've lost money in the long run. So it's really interesting looking at what New Zealand has, but you only see that when you go overseas and realise what we've got and we want to maintain and manage, you know.
Yeah.
How is the feeling of catching a marlin, man?
It's good. It's I guess it's that paradox I was talking about, right? The most exciting thing about catching a marlin is the moment you see it come into your gear, and it's a very visual, like not always, but it's often very visual. They come amazing. Like, we run our close lures close to the boat, you know, like, I mean, I don't know, 6 or 7 meters back, and when that thing comes up with its dorsal fin up in the air and its bill out trying to eat your lure, that's the moment we live for, you know. I mean, the catching them's great. I haven't wound in a marlin for years. We caught 21 or something last season. I didn't even think about winding one in, but I love the experience of introducing other people to the thrill of winding them in. And you know, again, I like, personally, we keep very few. I've caught well over 100 on my boat, and I mean, intentionally killed like less than 10, you know. You have the odd, it's one of those things, like, people get stuck into me, you know, that haven't game fished about, you know, you're killing these creatures that are 100 years old, which they aren't. They grow to, like, most of their life expectancy 7 years. They're one of the fastest growing fish in the ocean. That's regardless. But, like, I know more about and care more about marlin than most of these people that hate on the marlin fishing care about anything in their lives, you know what I mean? So, yeah, it's I mean, it's a magnificent fish, dude. I'm consumed by them, and I mean, the catching of them's great. The fact that they're
what
there
is
is
the
great.
argument that pisses you off when people say,
It doesn't piss me. It doesn't piss me off. I mean, it's like, I mean, hunters get the same thing. Spear fishermen get the same thing. It's like cruelty to animals. I mean, there's no right or wrong. I respect everyone's. We talked about earlier. I respect everyone's opinions. It's cool, and a lot of the people that don't like the idea of catching fish, it's impressive how like strict they are in what they believe in, and I respect that. I don't believe in it, but I respect the fact that that's how they choose to live their lives. It's way better than the people that criticise the fisherman or the hunter and then go to the supermarket. I'm talking about vegans, by the way.
What?
Yeah.
Who are you talking about? What?
Well, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? But that's so... Are you a vegan?
Well, I'm on a plant-based diet.
That's cool.
It's a big word.
I guess what I'm saying is, you know, a vegan will have a constructive discussion with you, and they'll give you... Most of them will give you their opinion, and you'll give them your opinion, and they're very set in their ways, and I'm set in my ways, and it's fine.
Yeah.
It's the people that criticise you for shooting a deer, spearing a fish, catching a marlin, that then go and buy steak in the supermarket or fish from the fish market, and it's like...
just a little bit of like, I feel like sometimes it's nice to explain this to people because like we don't know each other, right? And then I'm not saying that you have a view of all the vegans. That's why I even avoid the word sometimes because when I started going on the plant-based diet, it changed my health. It changed the way that I see life, you know, like, so I saw it as a beneficial thing for me. And then the more that I studied, I got deep into the animal cruelty that you're talking about, but like as big industries,
Sure.
you know, like seeing animals in cages and like being mistreated and all that stuff, you know, like, so of course you get a bit like, whoa, even brainwashed a little bit because it can be quite full on. But again, the more that I studied and I opened my mind, I went back to what? Tribal people, indigenous people, you know, like what was the thing? You catch an animal, you eat the whole thing, you make use of everything. You know, like you don't waste what you're catching, and you look after that as like the most sacred thing ever because it's feeding you, it's feeding your family. So like even when I see fishermen in town in Fitianga, I see like sometimes they give me a look like, oh, them motherfuckers. And I'm like, they don't even know me, so I don't take that personally. But every time that one of them come to have a chat, like we always have a good conversation.
Sure.
Because that's where I come from. I'm like, man, we all gotta eat. You know, like I just hope that whoever is going out there and catching the animal really does the job of catching the animal. One of our good friends, he's a MMA fighter, and he's like, man, have you caught a deer before? Have you carried a deer before on your back? Like, have you done that? Like, once you do that, you appreciate the food you catch, you know, like it changes your perception. So I agree 100% with you. Unfortunately, we live in a system that is very hard for most people to go and catch their own food. So you gotta rely on the mass production of foods and all that stuff. And that's when I say, look, I'm not saying that my lifestyle is the best one, but like, you know, there's less big industries mistreating like these creatures. But I'm not saying that it would be perfect, you know, like a world to turn like plant-based like this, it would cause a lot of damage as well. So like I appreciate, and that's what we talked before, like it's listening, it's funny, the thing, you guys go out there, man, Jackson, I always mention when you come here, Jackson Green, who studied at Dive Zone, like there's this great story of him bringing like the crayfishes and the scallops home when I was still eating seafood. And man, it was a celebration, you know, because well, it was one of the first times in my life that someone actually caught the food for me to eat. Oh, it felt amazing, you know, like, and I have that moment in my life. I respected him. I was like, wow, you actually caught that? And you're sharing with us? And he's like, yeah, man, yeah. Can you freeze one for my dad for when he comes to pick you up? I say, yeah, man, whatever. But like, so I appreciate that, you know, like what you're saying of going out there and looking after what you're going after.
I joined your world today. I had some vegan natural confectionery lollies, mate.
Ooh.
There you go. They had vegan nothing on the packet. That's about as far down that
Still
path
in the package, but good, we're good. And that's the thing, even the vegan label or whatever label, there's a big industry behind that shit, bro. Hey,
yeah,
a lot of people, oh, I'm vegan. What do you eat? Oh, French fries and like all the so, you know, like I try to go for the sustainable thing.
Yeah.
If you kill the animal and it's gonna feed a lot of people for a lot of time, man, fuck. Good on you, bro. Yeah. But then I want to link to another conversation that one, I still have to listen to more arguments to make up my mind, which is the catch and release. Because I know that there are studies, there are a lot of people who do that to study, and there are people who get a buzz out of it. How much of that is integrated to what you do with the channel? Like, because I didn't get to watch much. Is it a thing? Because when I was a child, there was a big thing, me and my dad, Sunday mornings waking up in Brazil and watching the fishing show. And my dad would love that because we were studying, you know, like, so I could see this guy catching the fish, explaining what was happening and letting it go. So what's the relationship with what you do to the catch and release?
I'm vast majority catch and release. And I can see the argument that people have about why that's unfair to an animal. I care about the environment and the species rather than individual fish, if you know what I mean. And there's a lot of situations where I won't release fish if I know they're not going to survive or they're not going to have a good chance of surviving. In those situations, I'll be very, very careful about what I catch. With our marlin, for example, we are very careful about making sure that we give them the absolute best chance of survival, and I'm extremely confident that the vast, vast majority of all the marlin we release survive. Otherwise, I wouldn't release them. I'd keep them. And I'd also probably catch less if I thought there was a high mortality rate. I guess it's one of those things. It's different. If you ask the fish, I think the fish would prefer to be released, right? I also think we've got to be very careful about putting human characteristics on animals. You know what I mean? Like, and I said that to you before we started recording. Those fish I release and they swim off. I've seen them. You know, when we've been fishing in areas the same over a period of time, the same fish are there feeding. You know, they've got a tag in them, and it's, you know, Matt Watson did an amazing thing where he went and did some satellite tagging with a spear gun, where he was firing satellite tags into marlin that were feeding on bait schools. The next day they went back and they could see, well, they could track the marlin for one, but they could see them feeding with the satellite tags, and they survive, you know. And we get a huge amount of enjoyment out of sport fishing. I get to go out and do what I love to do in nature. I catch a fish, I keep some to feed my family, to feed my friends. I'm very respectful of the fish that we harvest, and the ones I release, I've got a absolute confidence that they all survive. You know, and if you ask the fish, first of all, they wouldn't know what you're talking about because they can't talk. But
they would try to run like motherfuckers.
You know what I mean?
It's
like you can't interview them, but they're still alive. So it's, you know.
What's happening in the area, Darrell? With do you know about like catch and release projects? Like what are the main reasons why would you go there? Is like to trace where they're going, or like to know better about an area? Like what are?
Well, I know the stuff at the moment that Riley's trying to do with the sharks and tag the great white, so we can have more understanding of where they travel and where they mate and where they're mixing and stuff. So like all that sort of technology is going to benefit us in the long run. And it's some of them might be artificial, but it works. Like we go to a place in Benga Lagoon in Fiji and dive with the sharks there. 10 years ago, those locals were killing those sharks for their fins. So they make $1 once, right? Now they're making money time and time again by taking the tourists there. So it might be slightly artificial, but those sharks are still alive and they're living, and everyone's winning out of it, right? The community's stronger, and so they've thought about the process of taking the kill for now, or managing it and getting, and everyone wins, the whole community. So there's a lot more of that sort of process coming into it as well now, now that we've got the technology and these devices that are so mobile, we can actually get a lot of access to that sort of stuff.
Right.
Not all, like our catch and release, hardly any of it's for a scientific purpose. It's just, we'd rather, those big breeding fish would prefer them to be swimming, you know what I mean? And, you know, the people that don't believe in it will say, wouldn't you be better off not catching them? But the fishing industry in New Zealand, the recreational fishing industry in New Zealand is $1 billion industry. And if you work out the recreational value of a kilo of snapper versus the commercial value of a kilo of snapper, I'm not going to throw a figure out because I'll get it wrong, but it's a lot different. A recreationally caught snapper is worth 50 times more than a kilo of snapper fillets in the supermarket, you know what I mean? And that's to do with the boats, the motors, the gear, the electronics, the charters, the tourist dollar value, the list goes on, you know what I mean? And it's
all the indirect value that it gains, right?
Exactly.
And the exposure and the environment. So, and I think it's a good thing, you know?
Yeah, and it's sustainable. Absolutely sustainable. And you can still harvest fish for your dinner, you know what I mean?
Have you been on one of those long, like, fishing trips, being in the boat, like, living? Because some of those guys, it's a hard life, man. Sometimes they spend, like, days out there in the sea. Have you guys been in one of those long expeditions for fishing, like with?
My biggest is 12 days at sea, I think. I've done like 3 or 4, like 10 to 12 day trips. But yeah, I mean, I think most of those long ones are either like guys who are traveling between places or commercial fishing. But yeah, I love that shit, dude. Like, I think it's part of the whole, I mean, that's the adventure aspect. That was what drew me to kayaking, you know, like it wasn't so much the act of kayaking, it was the going with a group of guys and like forging a friendship in a harsh environment and working towards a common goal and all that other, like, you know, it sounds a bit airy-fairy, but when you're in the experience, it's like, that's the shit that I'll carry with me forever, you know. And it's amazing, like, you know, particularly with kayaking, I'd meet some guys, you know, I'd meet them on a river and wherever. We'd make, hey, we should go and paddle this thing in Venezuela or Uganda or whatever, and you'd have a couple beers, do a couple rivers with them, whatever, and you'd go on this expedition and you like get thrown into this crazy environment where the only thing that exists is getting to the bottom. And that's, you wake up in the morning and you all work towards that goal. You go to sleep at night and you're thinking about the next day, and you get to the end and it's awesome. You have some beers, you celebrate, but off the back of it, you've like, it's like you've created a friendship on steroids, you know what I mean? In a very short period of time, you've created like a lifelong bond with these dudes that it's epic. And I mean, I think it's something in our DNA, you know, that it's like, as hunter-gatherers or, you know, nomads or whatever, you are all just working towards survival.
Oh, it's the collective.
You know what I mean? And it's like, I think that's what I tap into with those adventures. And even with the, like, what draws me to the river or the bush or whatever, or the sea, it's like, I think there's something in my DNA that's like, that, I mean, like what you said about Jackson coming in and providing for, like, I love that shit, dude. Like, you know, you go shoot a deer and you feed someone a piece of venison and it's like, right, so this deer, we were there lying in the bush and he came down. You know what I mean? It's like, there's a story to it, and it's, you know, it's, you have a connection, and it's, you know, I mean, what's more sustainable than field to plate? It's like, or ocean to plate. Like, that's in its purest form. There's like one stop. It goes from here to the plate.
And I'm sure that if the human is not smart enough to stop the crocodile from eating, the crocodiles might say the same. Man, that human came and we grabbed the human and we strapped the human.
See, this is what you're doing. You're giving animals human characteristics. They're dinosaurs, bro. They don't know. Yeah.
Man, I love these stories, man. So you used to come to. You didn't grow up in the Coromandel, did you? No.
I spent a lot of time here. We as kids, we used to go to Opedo Bay back before it was Opedo Bay, but it wasn't BMWs and Mercedes. It was tractors and Holdens, and it was primo.
I can't stop thinking, you've just ruined my whole thing. So the Planet of the Apes is not real.
Oh, sorry, Darrell. God damn it, man.
Oh,
shit.
What am I going to do?
Yeah. But no, Coromandel's got a special place in my heart, man. I come here all the time. It's a fantastic resource, and yeah, I love it, dude.
Is summer here? Is the place to be for you, or you be all over the show?
I mean, like the West Coast always has my heart. Kawhia, West Coast Waikato. We got a place out there, and that's very special. With far north, but yeah, I'll find myself in the Coromandel for sure.
There you go. Let's go for a dive, eh?
Yeah,
absolutely, man. We're just so lucky out this way with all our islands and angles, and there's nooks for everybody, you know. Do you know what how we rate as New Zealand as far as boats and fishermen? Like, we're quite up there as far as the country for the amount of fisher people. You know, like especially in these regions, like it seems like there's just about every other person has a little boat and gets out and involved in it. You know, the demand on boats in the last couple of years has gone.
Yeah.
Ape, like as far as it goes.
It's a beautiful thing, like the proximity to the water, right? That was one of the first things that I learned in New Zealand when I arrived. People would say, "Oh, you're like max 1 hour and so from water. Like it doesn't matter where you are in New Zealand, like you're very close to the water. And I'm like, and now that I've been here for a while, I understand like you guys have this connection. And then I start to develop the connection as well, because when I go to the city, I love the city vibe. You know, I'm a musician, so I like to be out there. But as soon as I turn, you know,
Coromandel
to the Coromandel, and then you see that, it's like it's a feel like you start to appreciate that even more. So like it makes a lot of sense.
Cool, man.
Yeah, man. You guys, thank you so much. Taylor, happy days? Woo. Bro, what a show, man. That was cool, man.
It was good.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. That was cool, man.
Good to have. Yeah, good to be here.
Appreciate it. We'll bring you back because I'm sure you got some stories.
I'm gonna get
from
it
this
started,
trip.
man.
I know. I'm like, man, we might have to do part 2.
We can do part 2.
Nice, man. I
Happy
appreciate
days.
it, bro. Hope to catch you over summer or like sometime next
I'll be
year.
here,
we
man.
can.
I'll be here in March for the Kubota game fishing competition.
So what's
in March.
happening in March?
We got the Kubota Classic, I think. One of the local boys here, Thomas Maxwell.
Oh, yeah.
Long-time charter fisherman. He's got the biggest game fishing tournament in the Southern Hemisphere, runs a wonderful tournament. So we'll be here fishing that.
I got in touch with Tom, and he was too busy, family and all that stuff, but he said that he appreciates the show, so maybe it would be a good opportunity to come back with you, and then you sit here, and then he sits there.
Get him on, dude. He's got some stories to tell. He's a very talented man that's done a lot, so yeah.
Man, let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen.
Cool. Thank you so much. Darrell,
Very good.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Anytime, mate. Anytime.
Thank you.
Let's get you in the water sometime.
I know, right? I'm struggling to get out of this office for now, but you know that we're busy, and once we start to celebrate,
one day.
Oh man, when we start to party,
We'll do
it's
a
just
podcast
like
off the boat.
Ooh, non-stop. For you watching us, thank you so much. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 7 p.m. We're back on Wednesday with Mr. Stupidly. It's gonna be a beautiful show. Peace.